3, 2, 1, everybody. We are online. Yeah, okay. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Philippe Guillaume. I'm the General Secretary of the MedPorts Association. I'm working as well for the Port of Marseille as an International Relations Manager. I'm very pleased to welcome you this afternoon for this webinar dedicated to the fresh and perishable goods. I will be responsible this afternoon for the moderation, and I'm glad as well to welcome you all for joining us as a part of MedPorts and Tanger to provide you with timely topics and interesting speakers. Before starting the webinar, I would like to introduce in few words the MedPorts Association. The MedPorts Association is a non-profit organization created in June 2018 by 20 ports authority, among them the Tanger. The MedPorts Association now has 24 members and 2 associated members, representing more than 70% of the total traffic in the Mediterranean ports. All the biggest ports in Med are members of this association, and the first of them, Tanger Med, is with us and help us to organize this webinar this afternoon. Thanks again to them. The MedPorts Association have several objectives and goals, but the main objective is to create a network to enhance the dialogue, to make possible the exchange of best practices between all the Mediterranean ports, all the port authorities, and I would say that it works. So you can see on this slide many information, and I let you take the information you want and you need for a better knowledge of this association. Don't hesitate to follow us, and I invite you to visit our website and as well to follow us on the social media. This is just the first words and few words to present the association. I would like, before giving the words to Mr. Hassan Abkari, the Deputy General Manager of Tanger, I want just to tell you very quickly the name of the speakers of this afternoon after the introduction speech from Mr. Abkari. So we will have Mrs. Céline Bacro from UCTAD. After that, we will have Mr. Adil Shekri, puis Mr. Idris Arabi from Tanger as well, Mr. Javier Lopez Martinez from Algeciras Port, Monsieur Hugo Zedolon-Noir, General Manager, Mineral Terminal, Mr. Amr Mardi from Egypt, General Manager of Agro-Trade, from Corsica, La Méridionale, Mr. Olaf Gilden, and we will finish with Benoît Juster, the Executive Director of Rungis. So we have a very, very interesting panel this afternoon. We have 1 hour, so we asked before and in the preparation of this webinar to all the speakers to be very direct and to go right to the point. I think that we will not have some commercial presentation, but a presentation will explain the main challenges and the main drivers of the trade of perishable and fresh goods. So I am finished this small introduction, and so I would like to give the mic to Mr. Hassan Abkari. As said and as I mentioned, he's the General Deputy Manager of Tanger. You know, Mr. Abkari is an as a moderator, I'm very strict on the time, so I will not hesitate to cut you in an unpolite way if you overpass your time. But you know me, and I know you, and I know you respect this. So you have 10 minutes no more, and thank you again to help us in this organization. I wish you all a very, very fruitful webinars this afternoon. And so please, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, so of course, the subject we are dealing with today is of big importance for Morocco and for Tanger MedPort, knowing that the import-export of perishable goods correspond to more than 30% of the total truck or trailer exchange between Morocco and Spain. And Tanger Med represents over 97% of the overall traffic inbound and outbound Morocco, corresponding to this kind of goods. For Morocco, of course, the port plays a major role in agricultural products competitiveness, because we are trying just to address exports in a very competitive market, which is Western Europe, with the obligation of putting the products on the road day of harvest +1. And today, food supply chains are moved towards global interconnected systems with a very large variety of complex relationships. So we just have to adapt as a port authority to the very strategy of all exporters who follow up all the life cycle of the project, of the product from the putting, the grain in the soil until harvesting, and then start the race to reach the plates of the consumer all over the world. And we can manage to touch new markets if we manage to make more controlled transit times, especially when you are dealing with the custom procedures inside the port, or the sanitary controls, or whatsoever constraints that could be put in place either. So the development, of course, of the agricultural trade is increasingly determined by the capacity of the country to develop a modern infrastructure to facilitate exchange and movements of goods, as well as to ensure better food security. Logistics is today seen as a value-adding process that directly supports the competitiveness of agri-food companies in the country. And I think we are sharing the same concerns with all the exporting countries around the Mediterranean basin, and also the importing countries all over Europe. It also enables competitive price, quality, and compliance with rules and regulations in the supply chain. The strategic geographical position of the Mediterranean, Europe, Africa, and even far east and far west countries, when we have some business opportunities to share together the same supply chain. Of the case of Chile in South America, who may be using Tanger Med facilities as an entry point to Europe, because we are in counter season, so there is no competitiveness between both productions, Moroccan one and South American one, and therefore we can more of exporting our own product. We can also offer some logistical nodes to other products and bring in value added to these markets. So it's very important, as I said, as in economy, the Mediterranean area, connecting all these lands, and it's one of the most important economic areas for trade in the world. And though having these potentials, the Mediterranean area still cannot fulfill a key role in the global market, unfortunately. And there are a lot of enhancements to conduct in our ports, in the anti-control scheme to make this area as important as Northern Europe or other platforms around the world. So there are a lot of challenges facing the logistics that break, by consequence, the agricultural sector and crucial importance from our point of view to ensure a highly efficient agri-food logistics through ports to guarantee food safety for our countries and security and boost the economic development of Mediterranean countries as a whole. And thank you very much.
Switch on my mic. Thank you, Mr. Sanafkari, for this introduction. Was put on the table several main subjects around the question of the fresh and perishable goods, and especially the logistic of this kind of goods. So thank you very much. And I know that you are very involved in the life of the association, and I would like to thank you for that, Mr. Abkari. I would like to give the mic to Madame Céline Bacro now from UCTAD. Mrs. Bacro, you are here, and I would like to thank you and to apologize the association to not respect the gender equality, and you are the only woman this afternoon with us, and it's very important for us to say that we will work to improve this for sure in the future. And so now you are here, Madame Bacro, and we will be very interesting to listen to you, to hear you about the importance of this traffic in the development, in a very general speaking. So please, the floor is yours. 6-8 minutes, no more 8, no more.
Even 10, for women, I don't have like 1 or 2 additional minutes for women.
10 minutes, no more. 10 minutes. 10 minutes. 10 minutes. I give you 10. To apologize myself, it's a very small apology.
No.
Please, the floor is yours. Thank you. Merci beaucoup, madame.
Thank you. Merci beaucoup. And thank you for the invitation. We are glad to present the work of UNCTAD on that extremely important issue. I'm actually going to focus my presentation on trade facilitation. I know that you must, I looked at the profile of the participants, so I know that you will address the port issues, the infrastructure issues. I wanted to talk about the trade facilitation aspect. So let me share my presentation. Yeah. Can you see?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So trade facilitation of perishable goods. I like the introduction of Mr. Abkari because it's a good summary of the situation right now. Perishable goods is beyond the economic aspect or the business aspect, is also there is a human aspect behind people working in the agriculture sector and people consuming. So it's very important and not enough addressed. And trade facilitation, we'll see that it's actually more or less the same. And I'll start with the concept of trade facilitation. You know, trade facilitation is actually a process whereby the trade procedures are simplified, streamlined, so we can reduce the time and cost of the clearance processes. And here's just a chart, simple chart of what's going on everywhere, every day in the world for any traders. That's complicated and it takes time. So imagine when you have to export fruits or flowers, it's a no-go. So how to make this system or this framework more competitive, more efficient? It's first with the appropriate regulatory framework that we see at international level. And then we have the infrastructure aspect that I leave the other participants to present. So again, we have many procedures for every aspect of the international chain. So we have the commercial procedures, we have the transport procedures, regulatory procedures, and financial procedures. Commercial, transport, and financial are B2B, business to business. We don't take care of that. And when I say we, is actually because of my function in the UN, we assist the government. So when I say we, it's more like the public side. The public side is only involved in the regulatory framework. We don't expect the government to be involved in the transport procedures between the shippers, and we don't expect that to happen. We expect the government to facilitate and enable the environment so that the traders can export and import perishable goods in a quicker manner. So that's where we'll have our focus today. And we have one tool, one instrument, legal instrument that has been adopted in 2015 and entered into force in 2017, which is the WTO Trade Facilitation Agreement. And I think that it's still necessary to go back to the basics, because we tend to forget that whatever happens on the ground, most of the countries, I will see that later, have already ratified the TFA, Trade Facilitation Agreement, but it's not always implemented in the field, on the ground, and this has also to be part of the requirement and the obligation of the government to make sure that they are aligned with their own commitment. So the WTO Trade Facilitation Agreement, again, I know that most of you and most of the people listening to this webinar are familiar with that. It's a long process. It was a long process to make sure that all the countries can find themselves in this agreement, which is a multilateral agreement. So it means that you have 164 countries which have agreed on committing to an international trade agreement. And that was it took long, because as you can see, from country to country, we have already some big differences, disparities, discrepancies in the regulations, in the way the rules are implemented. So imagine when they had to agree. It took time, but in 27 November 2014, it was accepted. And I'd like to remind that the trade facilitation was the first multilateral trade agreement to be adopted under the auspices of the WTO. Why? Because all the countries realized that they had the interest in facilitating trade. There is no control. It's not controversial. There is a full consensus that all the countries will gain by facilitating trade. So, as I said, it entered into force in 2017, and 110 out of 164 countries had ratified at that time, and that's the two-thirds requirement to get this entry into force of an international trade agreement. We expect to have cost reduction in the trade processes between from 13 to 15%, depending on the level of development of a country. Meaning that if a country implements all the measures of the trade facilitation agreement, it can expect the cost reduction of the trade processes, thus gaining efficiency and competitiveness. And it's a win-win situation. The traders win because they sell more, they sell faster, and the governments win as well because they can attract more investors, and they also collect more revenue, public revenue, through the profits that were made by the traders. As of today, we have 94.5% of ratifications. And that's a point which is very important. When we talk about the Mediterranean countries, they all ratified. So it's important to keep that in mind. They have ratified, meaning that they have accepted to implement the measures. So now let's go back to the topic of our session. We have the section 1 of the TFA, which comprises the technical measures. And within this section 1, you have the fees and formalities provisions, the Article 7. Under this article, you have the perishable goods, Article 7.9. I'm not going to read, but basically, what does it say? What does it say? It says that the members shall ensure the prompt release of perishable goods to prevent their deterioration at the border. And this is an obligation. The countries should put in place all the requirements to make sure that perishable goods are prioritized to avoid any deterioration. It's a mandatory obligation. So again, no bargain. Countries cannot say, oh, but we don't have money, we don't have time. No, it's an obligation because we know that, as Mr. Abkari said, it's the need, it's a priority for all the humanity. Then the release. The release is, sorry, I need to click, the release, the WTO members must provide for release of perishable goods in the shortest possible time under normal circumstances, even outside normal business hours under exceptional circumstances. And WTO members are bound to give priority to perishable goods. So it's here, it's written. If ever you are told that it's not, it's here, you can show that. In terms of storage, the WTO members must arrange or allow importers to arrange appropriate storage. Possible to require approval as condition for movement of goods to storage, and obligation to allow release procedures at storage facilities. And then there is also an obligation to communicate if there is any reason of delays. You know, sometimes, in the past, a lot of frustration from the traders were that they could not get why there were some delays. So now there is an obligation from the border agencies, be it health, SPS standards, or any kind of agencies, to give the information to the traders. They need to know so that they can prepare themselves and adapt and correct if any. What is not included in the TFA in this particular measure is the definition of exceptional circumstances. This is up to the country to decide what is exceptional circumstances. We're not going to define for each and every country what is an exceptional circumstances. What we know is that it has to be fair in terms of market, not to use this rule to get into some kind of monopoly or domination of market. And also, it's not included if there is a possibility of extra fees to be paid in case of the release of goods, which is made out the business hours. That also depends on the country. So then you have an implementation checklist to see where the country is in terms of compliance with this rule. First, you need to see if there is a facilitated release procedure under normal circumstances, in place and outside the working hours See if these procedures is in place and formulated. We have to see also if there is a priority given to the perishable goods when scheduling examinations. Again, we need to see if there is a proper storage infrastructure and possibility for importers to arrange any storage facility, and the approval for movement of goods, and the communication about the reasons for delay. Yeah. So then we have the global implementation commitments for the countries. And we see that actually perishable goods are quite good. I mean, the implementation rate is quite high, 74%. So it's quite high. But what is not clear and what is not shown in this chart is that while the implementation of this specific measure is there, I mean, partly in great part there, we see that actually the other measures which are supporting this perishable goods measure are not always there. And that's something that I'll show you afterwards. Another example of the regulatory framework, which is in favor of enabling trade, the perishable goods, is the Imo File Convention. Obviously, we know that most of the perishable goods are also shipped by vessels. So there is also, like I've described for the TFA, the same. You have the adoption of the Convention on the Facilitation of International Maritime Traffic, the FOL, in 1965. The entry into force was in 1967. And the objective is, again, to facilitate the maritime transport. And we have specific measures on perishable goods. So let me read one to give you an example. I will share with you the presentation if you want to share it with the participants. So like public authorities should encourage owners and or operators of marine cargo terminals to equip them with storage facilities for special cargo. And there you would have, in bracket, valuable goods, perishable shipments. You have like the clearance of cargo, 5.7, Article 5.7. Public authorities shall, subject to compliance with any national prohibitions or restrictions and any measures required for port security or the prevention of trafficking of narcotics, grant priority clearance to live animals, perishable goods, and other consignments of an urgent nature. So again, you see, there are agreements in place. And sometimes it's just about going back to the text and tell the government, it's there. You have applied, or you have committed. Please, where are you in terms of implementation? So what are the key issues, the key trade facilitation issues related to perishable goods? And I'll be quick because I think that I'm over my time.
Yeah, clearly.
Okay, so quick. In terms of trade facilitation, we have delays at borders. We have a diversity of domestic regulations, usually related to the SPS and TBT. We have the transit issues with excessive controls, while normally perishable goods should not be imposed, this control that you would have for a normal crossing of border. You have also the lack of information on perishable goods documentation. What are the requirements for perishable goods? It's not always there. The clearance process also depends a lot on the agencies. Quarantine, health, customs, they all depend on their own regulations, no harmonization. We have also the clearance process for perishable goods, which is more complicated than the other products. And we have also the lack of trained staff. At the borders, sometimes they don't know how to handle, so that's also because these border agencies do not train their staff enough. And then you have delays and deterioration of goods and destruction. So you have a lot of challenges which are just related to trade facilitation. So what are the solutions in terms of trade facilitation? It's again, going back to the TFA, Trade Facilitation Agreement, sorry. So you would have the Article 1, and please, I will encouraged to go back to the agreement. Article 1 is about transparency and publication. You have the trade portals, you have the documentation of trade procedures, you know exactly how to handle, how to prepare yourself when you organize such a process. You have the advanced rulings, which is Article 3 of the TFA, which increase the predictability, because you know in advance how much you will cost, how much you will pay, sorry. So it ensures some predictability. You have the simplification of procedures, you know, just putting in procedures online. You have now the e-phyto certificate, you have the electronic hair weigh bill. This facilitates and increase the efficiency of the system by reducing the time. You have obviously the single window. Single window is coordination of agencies so that they can work together, one voice, and harmonize their procedures. Border agency cooperation is the same. Freedom of transit, Article 11, and last, customs cooperation. So it's only trade facilitation, but as you can see from this presentation, a lot of the issues of today are actually related to trade facilitation. So my conclusion on that is make sure that what your governments have ratified and committed is in place. And if it's not, it's the role of the private sector with the government to make sure that it's there. Thank you very much, and sorry for the delay. But women are always...
No, it was just perfect. Thank you very much, Mrs. Bacro. It was underlined in the chat box. Your presentation was very, very interesting, and the role of the private sector to push to implement all the regulation and all the requirements described in your presentation is very important. And maybe sometimes it's not known as much it has to be. And so it's important to have you in this kind of webinar too, that all the actors of this supply chain, of this logistic, know more about the work of UNCTAD. So thank you very much, Mrs. Bacro, for your intervention. And now, without transition, I have to, if there is some question to Mrs. Bacro, please put this on the chat box, and we will be back after on this. Now the floor is to Mr. Adil Shikri, Director and Head of Corporate of North Region from the EBRD. Mr. Adil Shikri, nous vous écoutons. We listen to you. You have no more than 10 minutes.
Thank you so much. And first of all, thank you for the invitation, and really happy to be with you. And apologies, because I really have to make my intervention really short, because I have other people waiting for another meeting. So I've cut down the messages that I was trying to that I had in my initial let's say speech. It was never a presentation, especially listening to a lot of what my colleague Celine just mentioned. What I wanted to focus on is, first of all, being a banker and a development banker, and the way we look at all of this, especially in the context of crisis time. We're not in normal time, so we can usually, as a development bank, we like to we have strategies, we have themes that we operate with. Clearly, sometimes you have to make a derogation and you know, leave the theory behind. But one thing that I wanted to definitely stick to and discuss is, obviously, as a bank, as a development banker, we clearly finance capex as well as obviously working capital. But we always, and one of our pillars of our strategy is obviously to keep in mind sustainability in mind. We can, as a bank and as a private sector bank, one of our priorities is to finance sustainable investment and sustainable capex. As much as, given the current climate, the current context, we try to make exceptions when needed. But one thing for sure is that we need to make sure that we stick to anything that is green along the whole value chain of perishable goods, from production, cultivation to arrival with the end customer, and to make sure that our message and the private sector does take that into consideration. What we do is obviously, because we know that sometimes it means that it's additional costs, additional studies, additional let's say efforts, and what we do is we have pockets of money from donors, you name them. They could be from the European Union, they can be from Asia and so on. Pockets of money that make the green and sustainable investments make sense in terms of the financial aspects, as well as in terms of the overall let's say cost. So basically to enable and to help the private operators take them into consideration, from the actual buildings, storage, making the buildings energy efficient, consume less energy, consume green energy, renewable energy, to the actual vehicles that transport the goods, that to provide and make sure that the cold chain is respected. As long as any use of energy is green, we provide and we are the link to basically pockets of money to subsidize those investments. So that's one point. The second point is do not hesitate to use banks like ourselves when it comes to, I think Celine was talking earlier on about interventions and policy dialogue. So basically, when it comes to regulations, sometimes regulations there's blockages at different levels. When it comes to sometimes it can be little but very important in terms of the impact that these blockages can have. Do not hesitate to use development banks like ourselves, because usually we have our voice is heard at the regulatory level, at the authorities level, because obviously we do provide financing, and usually the financing that we provide comes with other aspects. So we do, whenever there are issues that we deem reasonable and that we deem would any changes in those regulations can help fluidify and accelerate either trade or anything along the lines of, again, the whole value chain of, in this case, perishable goods, do not hesitate to use us. Make sure that we can we have all the arguments that we can use to build a case, and obviously go to the authorities together with you, with private sector operators and others, and make sure that the necessary changes can be made, especially again in times like these where time is of the essence. And sometimes changes need to happen at a very high speed to allow goods from A to B where they are definitely needed. So I think I hope I was not too brief, but at the same time, as I said, I just cut down to like one or two messages that I think can make sense from my perspective as a banker, as a development banker, I must insist. And once again, thank you so much for inviting me. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this intervention with striking points, and this is the most important. We need to well understand all the aspect of this logistics especially for the fresh and perishable goods. So it's very important to have all the actors, and from the banker's perspective, it's very interesting. So thank you very much for this intervention. I would like to the audience to call one or two friends just to help us to overpass the threshold of 100 connected. We are just at 98 connected. So please, if you are a brother or a sister who is able to connect, just for the statistic. No, it's a joke. 99, we are very close. This is the impact of the presentation of Mrs. Cécile Bacro and Mr. Adil Shikri. So I don't want to put the pressure on the shoulders of the next speakers, but I call and I ask to Mr. Idris Arabi from Tanger, Director of Import Exports, to take the mic, and I let you the floor. Mr. Arabi, you are here. I'm sure you are here. Not? Yes. Up. Yeah. So.
Yes.
Yes, you are here.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon. So.
Can you see my presentation?
We saw your presentation. We see your presentation. Just to tell you that you have 8 minutes, no more.
Okay, thank you. So thanks to MedPorts Association.
After 8 minutes.
Okay, thank you very much for the invitation to this session. I will start just with this figure, just to show that's with the pandemic year and its challenge, the global reefer trade is estimated to have a decline 1% during 2020, with a total cargo of 273 million tons. And the seaborne reefer volume contracted by 0.5% in 2020, as against 2019, reaching 130 million tons. Of these total volume, 87% was carried by containers shipped, with the balance in the specialized reefer vessels. So we can see that the transport by refrigerated containers has become the preferred mode of transport of perishable products. Next slide. The worldwide trade of perishable reefers goods. In general, the commodities related to the hotels and catering business suffered due to the closure of restaurants and fast food chains due to the COVID-19. And for example, frozen freeze decrease minus 8%, melons and berries minus 10%, and the citrus and juice volumes were down due to lower production volume, for example, in Brazil. And the biggest decline in overall trade occurred in 2020 as compared with the second quarter of 2019, and showed the impacts of lockdown on production, trading, consumption, and particularly customers' behaviors. In Tanger, if we talk about this traffic, Morocco exports represent more than 2 million tons of fruits and vegetables per year, and more than half is carried out by trucks. So 600,000 tons per containers, and the rest in conventional traffic. And we can note that 1.7 million tons are exported to Europe, and the rest is exported to Gulf countries and America. In terms of rural traffic, almost 40% of Tanger traffic is represented by fruit and vegetables flowed by automotives and textile traffic. And it should be noted that Tanger capture more than 96% of overall national rural traffic in Morocco. In this picture, we can see the export access, which is the dedicated platform for all the rural traffic and containers exported by Tanger. This platform has a capacity of 2,100 freight units per day, with a transit time with average of 2 hours crossing this area, with an investment of 40 million euro, 3 scanners dedicated to the export traffic, and the possibility of reaching 5 scanners. We have also 10 docks under controlled temperature and the cold rooms dedicated for these kind of perishable goods. If we talk about the cold chain strategy in seaports, we can note that the reefer containers are a fast-growing segment in container shipping markets, whereas the container shipping markets itself, it's in phase of maturity. So niches such as reefer transportation can still be exploited. And over the past decade, the reefer market has been the only segment showing consistent years-on-year growth in generally deficit containers shipping markets. And the intermodal compatibility, increased reality, flexibility, and the traceability that these containers and trailers and associated technology provide markets and the interactive mode of transportation for temperature sensitive cargo. And enhance these fast-growing and high-value cargo. Reefer containers, I think with their built-in technology and sensitive cargo, place more strict demands on ports infrastructure. So the rapid growth in these markets creates opportunities for ports to attract high-value cargo. And secondly, it is a crucial role of ports in reefer chain as locations of deconsolidation, multiple transfer, and custodianship and associated risk. And at least the reefer containers account for a considerable share of port energy consumption and making them a relevant consideration for port energy public. So in Tanger Med, the cold chain strategy is based on food quality and safety with a cooperation with National Customs and Inspection Administration for quality monitoring and pest control, sustainability with shifting to a renewable energy for this kind of goods, and reduce congestion, expected treatment for trucks with reefers, some trade facilitation with improving connectivity for exporting with other regions, and development, for example, with Morocco Foodex, the information system in order to speed up the fruit and vegetable export procedures. Another goal is to have more efficient service to customers with expected clearance by customs and inspections administration and container traffic within the port. If we talk about infrastructure, we have invested in cold storage capacity for inspection of goods in the port and the different export and import access, installation of specialized operators in the logistic free zone like Frio Puerto. And another goal is to increase the competitiveness of the port, making some marketing and host trade shows for perishable trades and outreach some shippers. And thank you for your attention.
In terms of timing, you are just perfect. It's just 8 minutes. Thank you for this very interesting presentation. And with thanks to this presentation, we could see the challenges that we have to deal with as Port Authority: reliability, fast operations, and as well as the question of the sustainability of this supply chain is very important because the supply chain needs many infrastructure and many very high consumption of energy to keep the cold chain at the right level. So it's important to have this point of view from the Port Authority as Tanger Med. We are close to just cross the Detroit, and I'm very pleased to see again Mr. Jacinto Javier Lopez Martinez. I saw him 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, directly in Algeciras for a very, very interesting seminar dedicated to the green transition, organized as well by the MedPorts Association. And so now, Javier, please, maybe you can give us the point of view of Al Jazeera Sport on this trade. And just to tell you that we are now more than 100 people connected for this webinar. So I think all the presentation attract many people as they are very, very interesting. So Javier, the floor is yours. Thanks. Muchas gracias.
Thank you for the invitation. We say my regards to the rest of the colleagues, partners for Tanger, for our customers. Congratulations, because it looks like a big success. Let me place my presentation. Hold on a sec. You able to see the presentation right now? Though? Yeah, sure.
I don't know if it's only me, but it's very difficult to hear you, Javier.
Are you able to see the presentation?
Yeah, we saw your presentation, but the connection is not so good.
We are having some kind of problems nowadays today in Algeciras. Basically, well, the Port of Algeciras it has become one, not only the Port of Algeciras, also the port logistic community has become a relevant specialist in handling reefer cargo. We enjoy two terminals, APMT with almost 4,000 flags, and TTI with 1,000 flags. It's quite relevant, quite important in order to boost reefer cargo in the port. We must say that Algeciras is one of the largest reefer platforms in South Europe, by far the largest in Spain. Thank you, among others, to the connectivity and the competitive transit time we have on countries. I think we also even more important that the connectivity is the effort that the Port Authority has been doing in the past year in order to gain more efficiency of activity in our boarding inspection point. We enjoy a boarding inspection point with more than 28 gates, with an ample timetables open from Sunday to Monday, Sunday the whole week from 8 a.m. to the 10 p.m. Custom and the inspector it was named by the European Union as a first category, which means that handle any kind of fresh products. And in order to meet the reefer demand, we are within the port 3 different reefer warehouse. One of them is reaching close to 15,000 pallets, which is quite large. And with that one, the Port Authority, along in collaboration with the public administration, central government in Madrid, we will be able.
Sorry, Javier. Sorry, Javier. The communication is very difficult, and it's impossible to hear you properly. So, is it possible maybe for you to try this? You cut, you disconnect, and after you come back maybe later to present your slide, because it's impossible to hear you really. It's not a bad communication. It's impossible to hear you.
I will do that. I will get back to you. Okay.
Try it, please. Try to connect and disconnect and come back after. I'm sorry. It's otherwise you can pass your slide, but without explanation is not maybe relevant. So try just one time, connect and disconnect, and we will see. Now I can ask to Hugues from MedPorts terminal to take the floor, and after we try again with you, Javier.
Okay, I'll do that.
Thank you. Sorry, Javier. Sorry. Hugues from the Hugues Ouzé de Laulnois, Managing Director of the MedPorts terminal in the Port of Marseille. The Port of Marseille first is divided in two ports, the Port of Fos and the Port of Marseille. The Port of Marseille is clearly dedicated to the Mediterranean markets. And so Hugues is one of the is the manager of one of the container terminal in the port of Marseille. I know that one of the main action when you take the lead of this terminal, Hugues, was to create, how can I say that, a good environment for the development of the fresh and perishable goods in your terminal. So I'll let you the floor. You can explain your strategy in this field. Who are you? Not especially you, but your terminal. But it's always interesting to know more about you. But for your terminal and for your strategy regarding this this project. Thank you very much, you to be here. I know that you are a very busy agenda. So thank you.
Thank you, Philippe, for this introduction. So as all the steering company, we are a very small link of the global chain. So I'll make a very small presentation in one page with 3 key points of how we worked on reefer container in global all pharmaceutical and vegetable container. The most important thing is, as all the terminal operator, we have a H24 control and people who control the reefer on the yard. And on all this process, we obtain a certification to on all process to control and report to the company. The second point I take is the KPI we have on the terminal is not more than half an hour to unplug the reefer container to guarantee to to clients, shipper and all maximum control on the quality and on the temperature. And on the last key point we have, as everyone know, in France, the union is very important. So we make a negotiation with them to control the loading and unloading cargo, the delivery cargo on reefer container. And we make a successful perishable goods charter with them to, in case of strikes, we know how to work and how to deliver the cargo in reefer container. And in fact, that's all from my point. Thank you, Philippe.
Thank you. I think it was important to have the voice of the stevedores, especially in this so fragile supply chain. So it's important to see through your examples that there is a kind of mobilization of many operators to help and to ease the development of this supply chain. So thank you very much, Hugues de Laulnoy, to be with us this afternoon. I don't know if Javier is coming back or
how do you work?
He's came back. You are here. We try the sounds.
Yeah, how do you work? Do you hear me?
Yeah, I think it's better. I think it's better.
Do you see the screen also?
Yeah, we can go through your presentation.
Okay, lovely. So basically, we are talking about how the Port of Algeciras will try to implement a new boarding inspection point within the new warehouse, basically in order to operate in the same way that North European ports can do it currently. So basically simulating this new procedure, basically the Port Authority will be reducing tracking transfer within the port, and also will be being more competitive cost-wise in order to look for our concessionaire. And in order to talk a little bit about the connectivity, I mean, the Port of Algeciras Bay, they are very focused. We're very focused on Latin countries, and we serve as a hub platform, not only for Spain but also for North African countries. Also, we are basically collaborating with Costa Rica in order to get the pineapple from Costa Rica to Mersin in Turkey. In Israel, currently it goes by trucking through North European ports, which is basically it's not a more sustainable way to work with reefer cargo. Also to highlight how the port of Facilitation has been growing through 2010, when we speed up with the initial operation of TGI. Now we've been growing year by year over 2 digits. We closed 2021 with a growth of 16%. This is only basically only to the success of the Port Authority, but also to the expertise of our port community. Talking about the port inspection point, Spain is a little bit tricky because we have to face collaboration with different institutions from the central government. We are, as we mentioned before, we are operating from 8 in the morning to 9 o'clock, 10 evening. Regarding our concessionaire, regarding our warehouse, we are talking to them in a daily basis in order to boosting them to provide different services within their facility. Basically, not only just warehouse cargo, but also cross-docking, labeling, inspection, distribution, or packaging. I mean, they have to provide the whole needs from our customers. Talking about challenge, you mentioned before, Philip, what are the challenges of the industry? Well, I think from the point of view of the Port Authority is that we need to enhance our cargo traceability. We have to use our port community system in order to provide more transparency to the cargo owners. That's critical. Also, we have to boost the European Union to keep going, to collaborate with South American countries in order to facilitate electronic data transfer regarding inspection documents. So that it makes easier the life of the whole logistic chain. Nowadays, I think Mrs. Celine made a few references about how difficult the situation in the situation is. We have to try to facilitate the movement of main bulk feed throughout the port. Shipping lines are facing shortage of containers.
Yeah, we are losing you. We are losing you yet again.
We know that the energy cost is a real challenge for our warehouse. I mean, all the European ports and also the Mediterranean one, they're going to be facing an extra cost that we somehow have to think about how not to transfer that extra cost of energy to the final customer. And that's it basically, Philip. That's our 8 minutes.
Thank you, Javier. Maybe we can conclude like this. Just I keep in mind from your presentation that it's important, especially for the port authorities, to coordinate all the action of the different actors inside the port, and that's why we hear from Mr. José de Lolnois some information about what they can do to help the development of this, to help the facilitation of this trade. And it was important to know from you as Port Authority as we can do to develop this traffic. So now I think it could be interesting to have the insight coming from exporters and importers of the fresh and perishable goods. So now I call and I ask to Mr. Ammar El-Sayed Mahdi, sorry for my accents, to take the floor and make a short presentation as well in 8 minutes no more. Thank you very much. Mr. Mahadi? I lose Mr. Mahadi.
Yes.
Yes, you are here, Mr.
Yes.
Mahadi.
How are you? Thank you for your invitation.
It's a pleasure.
Good afternoon, for all. At PER, the Logistic Performance Index (LPI), the countries are evaluated logistics based on 6 criteria. Number 1, the efficiency of the clearance process, such as the speed, simplicity of the ability to terminate procedures by control agencies, including customs. 2, the quality of transport and the trade-related infrastructure, like ports, railways, roads, internet application, and information technology. Number 3, the ease of transporting shipments at competitive cost. Number 4, efficiency and quality of logistic equipments, like reefer trucks and containers. 5, the ability to track shipments. 6, delivering shipments to their destinations on time with required quality. The most strategic challenge for commodities supply chains in general, refrigerated and perishable, especially through Mediterranean ports, is the extent to which the countries of these ports are able to meet the index criteria to enhance the current index rank. This needs the Mediterranean countries to make radical reforms related to the quality of their customs systems, as well as the safety and quality of their logistics infrastructures, whether land or sea. The magnitude of these pressures and the challenges to the supply chains industry has been optimized by other strategic challenges, such as the effects of COVID-19 and Russian-Ukrainian war, which has badly affected the international trade and then maritime international supply chain because of sharp short in the vessel and reefer containers, which lead to long transit time between Mediterranean ports and cause high shipping costs. There are many operational challenges related to the transportation and the logistic service for perishable goods. 1, temperature and humidity. 2, quality and perishable goods distributions. 3, maintaining the economic cost for shipping because of energy, logistic, and the human power needed. Mediterranean countries should provide incentives and tax exemptions for trucking and sea freight companies and logistic services, as well as provide competitive price for fuel, VAT, and custom duties. Governments and Mediterranean countries must make many repaid reform decisions for companies' operation in supply chains and the logistics service as follows. 1, restructuring government agencies associated with trade, transport, logistic, customs, and taxation. Number 2, reducing duties on logistics companies and exempting them from source tax and VAT. Number 3, facilitate the service to logistic companies such as energy supply, maintenance, and repairs. Number 4, facilitate the issuance of employee visas, the visas for drivers, and work permits to foreigners working in supply chains and logistics companies. Number 5, providing fuel for transport and shipping at competitive price. Number 6, economic partnerships, mergers, and acquisitions between the legal and financial structures of companies operating in the logistics and supply chain sectors. Finally, I want to talk about Egypt. Egypt has about 15 commercial ports. The most important one is Alexandria Port, which achieved trades worth 156 million tons of goods in 2020. Egypt ranked 67 out of the total 160 countries assessed by the World Bank in the quality of supply chains and logistics service. There is no doubt that Egypt has provided the industry of supply chains and the logistics service to the whole world and not only the ports of Mediterranean. The new Suez Canal, which is still economic expectation much larger than its current reality, in addition to the launch of the project expanding and developing the port of Abu Qir Bay with capacity of 2 million containers per year. Egyptian fresh products need to take the priority in discharging in European ports to reduce the bad effects of sampling analysis time frame, which will increase trade volume between Egypt and Europe. Finally, I want to thank everybody about this meeting, and I hope we get a good results. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mahdi, for this very, very clear presentation and very direct. And I think many of the main actors of the supply chain know what you are expecting from us, and from them. So thank you very much for this very interesting presentation.
Thank you.
Before giving the mic to the last speaker online, because we have two speakers left, one online and one recorded, I would want to thank all the team of the Tanger for the organization of this webinar. Hamed Benis, who was the chair of the Sustainable and Business Development Committee, Mariam Fares, who is a very active person at the beginning of the story of the MedPorts Association, Farah, and Iba for the technical side and the organization of the agenda and the relation with speakers. So thank you, all the team of Tanger. Now, we have many different actors, and it left the insight from the shipping line. So, Mr. Olof Gilden, La Méridionale, you have a line between Morocco and France, and I think many of the cargo are fresh and perishable goods. So you are clearly a very relevant speaker this afternoon. Mr. Gilden, the floor is yours. Thanks.
Thank you for inviting me. La Méridionale is a shipping line operating RoPax vessels. A RoPax vessel is loading rolling freight such as trailers and passengers. And we decided 1.5 years ago to open a line between Marseille and Tanger that was not any longer existing for a rolling freight. And of course, fruits and vegetables were and still is one of our targets. The other one being the automotive industry, but it's not in the discussion today. And these products, since many years or since ever, were traveling through the Gibraltar Strait and then by road through Spain. So by opening this line, to Marseille, we tried to make a shortcut in a way. So we had to cope with the requests of the farmers of Morocco, which were to be fast, to be reliable, and to be cheap, unfortunately, because a trailer loaded with apples is cheaper than a trailer loaded with Apple computers. So you have to take care of what you are transporting. So we decided to have a high frequency with 3 weekly departures, which is a departure nearly every second day. And this in order to cope with the demand of the Moroccan agriculture. At fixed days, I mean, our clients need to know that we are, when we say we leave on Saturdays, we always leave on Saturday or on Wednesday or Monday. We don't change the schedule during the week. And we need to be very fast, so we put fast vessels sailing at 21 knots, which makes it possible to get to Marseille in the same time as a lorry. It takes about 40 hours in both cases. So this was what we needed to make to get that market, but we also needed to give some advantages to the market, I mean to the market of the agriculture. And so sea transport in our case, Tanger Med to Marseille, it's less CO2 equivalent emissions. We decrease that by 42%. And the buyers of the fruits and vegetables in Europe, the supermarket companies, they are looking into these figures very, they are very straight on that. We are avoiding road congestions. We are avoiding the visa issue, which is a problem for Moroccan truck drivers. And we also avoid to have trucks and drivers on board. We are transporting mainly reefer trailers, even though we can transport also the truck and the driver. But we all know that there is a lack of drivers in Europe, all over the world. And this is a good way to tackle the thing. So our offer is coming in addition, of course, to the existing way through Algeciras, which is the main road. We are coming in addition, offering some different services. Of course, we need to run our ships reliable ports for the vessels. Of course, we need to have quays and a good infrastructure. What we find in Tanger and in Marseille, but also the port needs to be specialized in the handling of fruits, which is of course the case of Tanger, which is a big Morocco being a very big producer, but which also is the case for Marseille, because companies coming from Tunisia, Algeria, East Med, not talking about the rest of the world, are coming with fruits and vegetables there. So there is an infrastructure with specialized forwarders, customs offices, refrigerated warehouses that can take care of all these goods. An important point also for Marseille is that it is a transshipment port, so we can transship the goods to other destinations within the Med, mainly to Tunisia, but also to Turkey or other places. So this is very important. Then, of course, talking about ports, it's what I'm telling you can sound a bit ideal, but there are still some problems to tackle. And if we talk about the port of Marseille and coming back to what Mrs. Bacro told us, For instance, the phytosanitary office let's say that there is space for improvement when you are talking about opening hours. So, I mean, there are still some things to improve. Not same, but also in Tanger, we have the feeling that the time between a lorry arrive at the harbor's door and is alongside the vessel in the port could be improved, even though we know that in both cases, in Marseille and in Tanger, a lot have been done on those subjects, but still we have to improve this, because as I don't remember who mentioned, I mean, I think it's Mr. Mahdi maybe, that we need to be fast. And when you are transporting fresh fruits or fresh vegetables, you cannot wait at any time anywhere. Otherwise, the goods will find another route. So after 1.5 years, we are on track. We are very happy of the volume we have on board. We need to increase still the part of the fruits and vegetables, but we are online and we are very happy for that. And this is thanks to the professionals from the port of Tanger and the port of Marseille. We don't hear you, Mr. Guillaume.
Thank you very much for your presentation and your patience to wait for this. It's very interesting as a point of your shipping line, what you want to develop as a multimodal or intermodal supply chain. So it's very interesting. If you have some question from the audience, don't hesitate to put this on the chat box, as we can ask to the speakers later. Now we have finished with the speaker online, but we have the last one, Mr. Benoît Juster, who is Executive Director of Rungis. We made the interview of Mr. Juster just before this webinar for the question of agenda. So we have a record of the presentation of Mr. Juster. And after this, we can conclude this, not Mr. Juster, yeah? We can conclude this webinar with the word of Mr. Hamed Benis from Tanger Med, Chairman of the Sustainable Business Development. Please, Farah, I turn towards you for the presentation of Mr. Juster. I'm now with Mr. Benoît Juster. Benoît Juster is Executive Director of Rungis Market, in charge of international and domestic development. You say about yourself, Mr. Juster, that you are a generalist in land use planning issues, and you say as well that you are and you were a manager of companies and profit centers. With Rungis, you are in the perfect place, taking account the main characteristic of this international market, Rungis. Just a word about Rungis. Rungis is 234 hectares at 7 kilometers from Paris, with 1,200 companies on site and 18 million consumers. Rungis is one of the main European actors in the trade of fresh and perishable goods. That is exactly why we are very interesting to hear you this afternoon, and why we invite you to talk about this particular or not particular trade. And it is from what is so particular. And before replying, could you tell us a little bit about Rungis market and a word heard about your relation with the Mediterranean countries. And finally, we will be very interested to hear you about your expectation, your needs from and to the maritime transport sector and for the port, and especially for the Port Authority, to help the development, the fluidity, the reliability of this peak and this trade. So that is the main information about the specificity of trade of fresh and perishable goods. And finally, waste. Okay, thank you, Mr. Chester.
Thank you for your invitation.
Voilà, it's from my side. It works.
About as you said, one of the main player about fresh food logistics in Europe. Rungis is a wholesale market serving the Greater Paris region. It is actually the biggest wholesale market in the world, and we have 230 hectares, 1,200 companies. We host companies. We have an annual turnover of course, 3 million tons of product arriving it's the main hub for we are connected to a lot of territories, of course, French, in France, there is the demand for local products.
I'm sorry, I don't have a good flow from this record. Is it from my side or for everybody? Please, technical team, could you let me know?
I think for everybody.
It's the same, huh?
Yes, it's the same. We have a very.
So it's very cut. Yeah, yes. Yeah, okay. So we are going to stop this record. Iba, maybe we can. So it doesn't work.
Among these products, we have a lot of products coming from the Mediterranean region. First, a lot of fruit and veg coming from Spain and Morocco, especially during the winter period and the early spring period. We also import a lot of volumes from Italy, Turkey, Greece, Israel for fruit and veg. Tiny volumes from Egypt, because Egypt is more exporting to the UK or to the Netherlands, but we have some Egyptian products, and Egypt producers are very interested by the French market. And so it's mainly, in terms of volumes, the fruit and veg in Rungis, they represent, roughly speaking, about 40 to 50% of the total volume. But we also import some meat, some cheese, some seafood from European countries. So it's an important region for us. And beyond Mediterranean region, we also import a lot of products from the Red Sea and from the Western Africa. So we have a lot of products coming from Western Africa, tropical fruits mainly, coming by sea transport, coming to Rungis. So about this, our needs concerning the transport and logistics of fresh food. Of course, we need reliability. We need constant quality of service, because we don't store we have 3 days of storage in Rungis, so we always need to import and to bring new products to Rungis. So we need a very stable means of transport to bring the products to Rungis. So we from Spain and Morocco, the products are mainly coming by road or by train, and from the other countries, it's by plane for a small part of the products we import for the premium products, and the other products are coming by boat. And what is very important to say is that about 90% of the products we import in Rungis coming by boat are arriving in Europe via Rotterdam or Antwerp. For different reasons, the players, even for if for a boat coming from Eastern Mediterranean, mainly they prefer to arrive in Antwerp or Rotterdam than to arrive in Marseille, in Genova, or Barcelona, and so on. I think that they think that the service is more reliable, maybe better service in this Northern Europe harbor. And it's a very important point. And from our point of view, since we would prefer to shorten the length of the trip, the duration of the trip, we would highly prefer to use some Mediterranean ports. We have some lines arriving. For example, we have some lines arriving in Port-Vendre in France, very close to the Spanish border. We have some lines arriving in the Mediterranean, but we would prefer to develop these lines and to connect them with rail transport. And one of our main objective and strategic objective is to develop rail cargo services arriving in Rungis. So one of our projects is to create in Rungis a multimodal platform in order to be able to welcome containers in Rungis. And our objective is to create train lines with Marseille, Fos, maybe Sète, and also Dunkerque in the northern part of France. And of course, we have already an existing train line coming from Perpignan, and with a dedicated hub in Perpignan for modal transfer from the trucks coming from Spain and Morocco, and then it travels by train from Perpignan to Rungis. This is the main aspects I can underline.
Mr. Juster, if I just have a final question, when you talk, I wonder for myself, do you have, in terms of investment, a strategy to invest overseas in the country of production directly, or to participate in the development in the countries of production, to develop platform, etc., maybe in different place in Med, or you or your competitors? Is there a kind of vertical integration of this market, or not at all?
Yes, there are two types of integration. First, we have some key players based in Rungis, involved mainly in the business of tropical food. Key players like the company Fruitière or the SIM, and they have a vertical integration. They produce, for example, in Western Africa. They sell a part of their product locally in Western Africa, and then they send by boat their products to Europe, and they have one of their main bases in Rungis. And these companies, they are very interested to develop, to have investment in these countries in order to develop the percentage of the products they sell locally, to be more to fit their environment requirement and environmental targets. And concerning Semaris, so we are not involved in buying and selling food products. Our business is to develop and operate logistic hubs and the wholesale market. And so our main business is to invest and create these logistical facilities and to rent out the spaces to the companies we host. And since we are the first player in the world, we have a strategy of developing a network of platforms under the umbrella of Frangis throughout the world. So we presently have projects in Egypt, with the Minister of Supply of Egypt. We have projects in Western Africa. We have projects in Southeast Asia. We have projects in Central Asia. So it's definitely our objective to develop such platform, and it could be interesting to develop such platform in Morocco or in Turkey or in different countries.
Many thanks for your intervention, Mr. Juster. It was just a very interesting to have you and to understand your strategy and how the fresh and perishable goods are important for your, I would say, business. For concluding from my perspective, I would say that you as actor, you are a very important partner to develop the door-to-door solution for this kind of project. So I say that for all the audience, it's very important to understand that you are a very important actor for developing this kind of logistic solution. So thank you again, Mr. Juster. Thank you, and have a good afternoon. Thank you to participate in this webinar and to bring you. We come back, and so with this last presentation from Rungis, you see that we have started this webinar with the regulation framework, and we arrive at the end to the final destination with the cargo passing through the port authority, passing through the steel doors, passing through the shipping lines, etc., etc. And so it was our main objective is to provide to the audience we try to have lightning information about this so specific logistic chain. So I hope that for the audience it was very important, and you can get some information and to increase your knowledge about this supply chain. So this is one of the objectives of the MedPorts Association, to create this kind of the conditions to exchange between us and to well understand the expectation of all the actors of the supply chain, especially in med, but as well in relation with the rest of the world. So thank you, everybody. Thank you, the speakers, for your very interesting presentation, for your patience, because we are a little bit overpast the time. And for sure, Madame Bacro, the next time we will have 50-50 gender representation. It's not a promise, but I will work on it. And thank you again for your presence. Your presentation was very interesting. So thank you, all the speakers. I let the floor now to Hamed Benis, who is, as I said, the chairman of the Business Sustainable Development, the Sustainable Business Development of the MedPorts Association, who is in charge of this webinar. Without saying thank you to my team in Marseille and in Alessandria, Faj and Anna, for their collaboration and cooperation for this webinar. Ahmed, I give you the word and the place to conclude. Thank you, Ahmed, again. Thank you, all the speakers. Thank you, the audience. Follow us the MedPorts Association on the social network and on our website. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much, Philip. I think that it was a very, very fruitful discussion, and I really appreciate the interactions between the experts and also the audience. This is definitely a very, very important topics to the ports community at the Mediterranean Sea. So we were delighted to be part of this great initiatives, and I highly commend the work that has been done by the MedPorts Association. Thanks again to all our speakers for their contribution. Ms. Celine, thank you for representing UNCTAD. It was really a great pleasure for us to hear your insight. Very interesting. I was listening very carefully to all these demonstrations on how we develop trades in the Mediterranean and more. Thanks, of course, to our brothers from Algeciras. Thank you so much for your presentation. Thanks again to our brothers from the EBRD. Without, of course, without missing the opportunity to thank Mr. Hug, who was very insightful in his presentations, and of course our colleague from the Meridional, Mr. Olof. Thank you very much for your insight. I think that we all commit on the fact that fresh and perishable goods represent a major interest in terms of developing trade flows between the Southern Mediterranean and the Northern Mediterranean side. This is just the first exercise within the Sustainable Business Development Committee at the Mediterranean Port. We've addressed this important topic, and I think that we will follow up very soon with other activities with the support of the Secretary General, Mr. Philippe Guillaume, who did a tremendous job to make it happen. Thank you all again for your contributions, and wish you all the best and success for your career. Thank you so much. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you again. Bye-bye.